following is a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net. What's up, Downers? Welcome back to another episode of Downer Church, the spin-off to the System is Down podcast. The System is Down is all about conspiracies, politics, and religion, but here on Downer Church, we focus solely on open discussions about theology. And when I say open, I mean literally open to whatever comes up. There's no plan, there's no agenda, there's no scripting, there's nothing. I don't even plan out the intros, so I might just ramble on for way too long and forget where I was going with this, but that's exactly what's happening. So this is open discussions about all things theology. Whatever comes up is totally welcome. It's dirty, it's messy, it's raw, and anybody who wants to be a part of it, of any background, any belief, any lack of belief, is welcome to join. You personally are able to be on this show. We typically do it every Monday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, and if you want to be a part of it, you are welcome to join us. If you want to be on Downer Church next week, just go to tsidpod.com/church to find out how. All right, let's get weird.
This question that comes up that says, without God, if you don't believe in God, why would you not rape and kill anyone you want to? If there isn't a God, what's stopping you from raping and killing everyone you want to? Anyone you want to, why wouldn't you rape and kill them, Penn?
Yeah.
And my answer is, I have raped and killed everyone I want to. I've done that. Without God, I have raped and killed everyone I want to, and the list of people I want to rape and kill is zero. And why the fuck isn't your list zero?
Is that Justin? That's Justin. Justin, what's up, man?
Hey, sorry about that.
It's all good.
Whew.
How's it
All
going?
right, what's going on? It's great. I just been busy day, man. Busy day. A lot of work getting done. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad I could make it.
Yeah, I hear you. I was about to cancel because I have so many things to do. So this will probably be a short one because I'm going to go back to work when we're done here. But, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep. But, we got to do it.
Justin,
So-
do you have a new room?
What?
Excuse me?
Justin, do you have a new room?
So, I turned my desk around, so now you're actually seeing like the other side of my room. There's my
Whoa.
bed, my bookshelf.
A whole new world over here.
Yeah. I rearranged a little bit.
Sounds like something in a bad movie. It's like, they're low on set, so they just flip a table around. You get to see the second half of the room.
Pretty
It's
much.
completely new.
Yep. All
I
right.
mean, the lighting's even the same.
Well, Forrest, we were waiting for you. Or not Forrest. You're not Forrest. You're Justin. Justin, who's echoing now? Dang it.
I think it's not me.
Check. All right. Well, Justin, we were waiting for you because we left off last week. Typically, we don't have like a topic necessarily, but we left off last week in the middle of a discussion because we were running a little long. And so I said maybe we'll bring it up at the beginning of this episode, which was the discussion of morality with or without God. And, all the Christians think that you can't have morality without God. So I wanted to, I say all, but, that's a
Not
broad
really
statement.
all, of course.
Yeah, no. But yeah, we've got two people here who do not believe in God currently, and two people who do, aside from myself. So I wanted you to be here to kind of even it out and give your
Sure.
take on the whole thing. So
Okay.
feel free to weigh in.
All right, cool. So that's a really good question that I've actually thought a little bit about myself kind of recently. So, like, to what extent can an individual act morally without necessarily believing in God? And then the next question would be, to what extent can a society act morally, like a collection of individuals? Do believe I don't believe it. I know it to be the case. I think I act morally, and I don't believe in God. So done. You can do it because
Sure.
I'm evidence of that. Now, the obvious follow up to that is, well, am I acting morally only because I happen to be growing up in a society with which certain norms and values have been formed over a long enough period of time, such that to me it seems like, oh yeah, this is just what we do.
Yeah.
But maybe if there wasn't the various religious traditions, that there was like some sort of like competitive mechanism that the good values started to propagate, the bad values started to not. Something of an evolutionary mechanism kind of going on there, but with regards to values to make prosperous societies, led to me viewing the way I am right now. And I'm starting to think that it's not immediately obvious to me that you can take humans in a vacuum and expect them to act morally without all the sort of like without the underpinning of our entire, what our civilization has given us right now. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Can a civilization? What would an atheist civilization even look like? That's sort of like kind of a complicated question, because I don't think we've ever seen a voluntarily arising atheist civilization.
Sure.
So I don't know if I answered the question. I was kind of jumping over everyone right there, but
no, it's a lot of interesting points. I think one of the big issues. Well, you say that you do act morally, so yeah, of course you can. You are a moral person, but I think the big question is what defines your morality? Like, what determines what is moral and what is immoral for you as somebody who doesn't, give to a higher power, or if we're all just animals. You brought up evolution. If we're all just survival of the fittest, the strong devour the weak, then what is moral and what's not?
Yeah, that's fair. So it's sort of like, what are the set of rules that would govern an iteration of me, or sorry, let me rephrase that. In any given instance, I can, choose to ignore what's considered conventional morality and be like, oh, I'll just take this guy's stuff because right now I win. But that doesn't seem to be a winning strategy over a long period of time. So like successive games, like if people know that Justin's the guy who like will con people and take advantage of what he wants to, I'm going to be considered pretty antisocial. But it does seem to be certain norms around like,
You're saying antisocial is immoral?
Well, I guess like people who tend to act in a way that your average person would consider to be moral are people that are popular, or people that people want to be around. And it seems that individuals that act in an antisocial manner, and usually what they mean by that is ways that bothers other people and upsets them, whether it's like literal violence against them or theft, or all the way down to something like lying or being sneaky or backhanded, etc. You can make the case that all those are varying degrees of moral or amoral. And I think it has a lot to do with to what extent, what would be the rules that would govern a society of cooperation for the long term, not the short term. So I don't necessarily think survival of the fittest is a good long-term strategy. It might be useful in certain instances, or it might be useful in the short term, but I don't think it's a successful strategy for propagation over a long period of time. Does that make sense at all?
Yes, and I could push more, but I want to see if anybody else wants to weigh in. Curtis?
I mean, what's up?
I think morality in a basic, like very, very basic sense comes down to property rights. And if I have my stuff, I wouldn't want someone else coming in to take my stuff. And if I think someone else taking my stuff that I've worked for, I couldn't see myself as going to take someone else's stuff, because then that would lead me down a path of immorality.
Sure.
Whereas,
but what makes that immoral? Well, like I said, I mean, in nature, you kill the person who has the thing that you want, and then you're the biggest, strongest guy, and that's it. That's really the only law there is there. So for humans, what makes it any different?
I think probably the collective good idea.
Sure.
Where when a group comes together, whether you want to consider spontaneous order, I mean, humans do come together no matter what. And in that sense, they tend to create their own laws, their own governing bodies, and their own ideas on how they want their society to act.
So would you say that morality is based on what we all collectively like the most?
Probably. I mean, we see it in different cultures all around, whether they've been exposed to Judeo-Christian religions, or if they're still sitting in a tribe in the Amazon wearing a leaf over their crotch.
Sure.
I'm wondering if So to get back to that, property right ownership, which I wholeheartedly agree with. You take the base the base assumption that you own your body, and then you can expend it to you own the fruits of your labor, and then you develop the idea of private ownership of whatever, and then you can trade that, etc. Just basic libertarian theory. So the initial question is, okay, well, why do you own your body, and what makes that a valid claim to say you have for yourself? And now I hear myself echoing.
I do too.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so now that's a good point. And I guess the question would be, so what if we didn't own ourselves? And then I think civilization just wouldn't exist. So I think it's sort of by the fact that we can choose, but if we choose not, if I think most people choose that assumption, whether or not they realize it or not, that they own their body. Mm-hmm. And the idea that if they own their body, they probably shouldn't do things to other people they wouldn't like to do for themselves. Which you could make a case that sounds like the golden rule right there.
Sounds similar.
It could also be the case that religions just sort of codify certain values that would propagate. Sorry, my thoughts are so scattered. So you could imagine various competing civilizations, and each of these civilizations have different norms that show up for whatever reason. Well, I could imagine the civilizations where there are no strong norms against suicide probably would not be super prosperous, whereas norms that would say, oh, killing yourself is a bad idea, you shouldn't do it, might be more prosperous. Mm-hmm. All things equal. And then with civilizations where they take the idea of you own your body and you shouldn't aggress upon other people, as opposed to civilizations that don't take that idea, the former civilizations are more likely to be the ones that are successful. So it's sort of like we want to have our species propagate. We have this sort of genetic tendency to want to procreate, and we tend to be in groupings, and we have to work with people, and we have to make decisions. Do we compete or do we cooperate? Do we aggress or do we voluntarily exchange with? And I think all the various norms that I really do think were codified in Christianity of non-aggression, of peaceful interaction, of helping people, of taking care of your family. I mean, those are the norms that would have to exist for a society to be successful. Now, whether or not it's whether or not they use the idea of a God who made these assertions and that's why people believed it, I mean, jury's out. I don't have an answer to that.
So would you say that it's kind of an evolutionary thing to further our species? Like we developed this idea of morality in order to make humans the dominant species and perpetuate us into the future?
I think it was just the most successful of all the various ways of organizing society.
Interesting. Karen, you want to weigh in?
I don't know if I have any wisdom to offer. I find this a fascinating conversation because I have not ever considered it that way. I've just, I've always been really deeply irritated when people make that statement that only Christians can be moral.
Right.
Because I know otherwise from knowing people.
I think that statement is so completely ignorant. I think it's interesting to dig into if they don't believe in a God, where does the morality come from? But yeah, the whole you're immoral if you're an atheist is complete bullshit.
It's a fair point now that you say with regards to only Christians can be moral. I mean, you guys could make a very strong claim that I'm acting Christian enough. So it's sort of like I'm not really acting atheist, even though I might make that claim, but all my actions seem to be, for what you guys know about me, my actions seem to be in line with what you would probably claim are Judeo-Christian values. So it's not that I'm not Christian. It's just maybe I'm Christian enough, so whatever that means.
I would disagree. I'm sure there are plenty of Americans who would certainly be all for that. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say that you're a Christian without believing in certain things, but yeah, not that I'm like super Christian or even that I know where I fall on most subjects, but yeah, as far as most Western culture goes, if you live in this country, you're Christian enough, so that's really all that matters, right?
Yeah, celebrate Christmas and Easter, so yeah. That's good enough, right?
Yep. Forrest, you got any thoughts?
Well, if this segment wasn't recorded earlier, I'll just let the listeners know that I'm job searching right now as we talk.
Don't be job searching during church.
You know, last week we had like 12 people in here, and so it was easier for you to get away with not paying attention. Now we've got 4, so it might be a little bit more difficult.
I feel cornered.
You literally are cornered in my screen.
Oh yeah, no, that's true. No, actually, one of the things that I remember, I was kind of discussing with my mom a while ago. This was quite a while ago. We can kind of see I guess you can say one of the hints that there is a God, or at least a higher power with a specific moral system, is that our laws are based on, a lot of our laws are based on certain like rules or morals or laws as we see in the Bible. So it's clear that the Bible has had enough influence to kind of go into our laws. Am I saying that for every law? No, because some laws are absolutely over the top. But either way, that was kind of like one of the hints. So and just because you follow the law, even if it's a rule that comes straight from the Bible, it doesn't mean that you are a Christian. Right. So I mean, that's really all I've got. I'm trying to talk as basically as possible without going too much in depth about it, because then I'm just going to go off on a tangent. But that's the first thing I thought of when we started discussing this.
Sure. Interesting. For y'all Christian crowd, I'm curious as to your thoughts on the scripture that says obey the laws of the land, and then the laws that disagree with what you think scripture says, and how that ties together. Karen, impart your wisdom upon us.
I'm trying to think right now of what laws I think are in contradiction with scripture. It's late. I'm tired.
Why'd you have to do 8 o'clock, Dan?
What's that?
Why'd you have to do 8 o'clock, Dan?
It's not late for normal people. It's just late for me and my weird schedule.
I moved it back an hour, and you guys are still complaining about the time.
Yeah, it's great. I greatly appreciate you moving the time back.
It's 9 o'clock for me right now, so whatever.
Yeah, if I could think of a law that I thought contradicted scripture, I would have a better time.
Dan, could you give some context for me? Because I'm actually not entirely sure what you're referring to.
Sure, and I had a thought, but it left me. Give me a second.
Sure.
If anybody else wants to chime in, feel free to.
Stop job searching.
I'm actually texting. I multitask, sort of.
Yeah, no, it's totally left me, the example that I had. So let's move on. That was fun. All right. Anybody else got something they want to talk about?
Yeah, I on one of your previous churches, there was the discussion about what would it take for a believer to not believe in God.
Right.
And someone brought up aliens. Mm-hmm. And that I'm not even trying to be I'm not even trying to be conspiratorial right now. I'm actually legitimately curious, where do aliens fall within your worldview? Is that consistent?
Depends on who you ask. Who are you asking?
I'm asking you, Dan. I'm asking you, Dan.
Okay. Depends on the day. If you're asking me from a religious perspective, I like the idea of aliens existing, and perhaps there is life on another planet that Christ died for as well. Or maybe they had a different Christ and they have a different Bible. I mean, if God is big, why is that out of the realm of possibility?
That's fair.
But yeah, I think more so that aliens are not real, and it is probably something spiritual that we're seeing. And yeah, that's the very short answer.
Dan, you got me thinking. I mean, Jesus was obviously human. Who's to say that God didn't send another son of his to an alien planet and he was an alien?
It's a fun thought experiment for sure. We're just like, no, that's impossible. But the question arises, if it's impossible that there was another Jesus of some sort, well, if there was life on another planet, would they be considered humans? And even if they were, would they be able to go to heaven? Like, there's so many questions if there are aliens and they're just, they're just like us, but somewhere else. Which I don't think is too far-fetched, but... Karen, where do you weigh in on aliens?
Yeah, my first thought is probably the people that I know who are the most sure they've encountered that. It seems to have caused doubt in them, and so I have wondered if it's something else manifesting,
Sure.
to cause people to question God. However, isn't there a scripture, and I'm bad at finding these things, somewhere about that he has other sheep or something? And so it's like, well, and maybe it could be like,
I don't know, but if you
on
find
a
that, let me
planet?
know.
Okay, I'll have to do a little searching, but not while I'm on here.
Sure. You can search while Curtis weighs in on aliens.
Well, if they are out there and they are more advanced, I can definitely say I'm not surprised why they won't show up.
Right.
Right.
I guess it depends. I almost
What do
want to
we
say
have?
I want to say the Fermi paradox is probably closer to what's going on, that time is continuing to go by and every advanced civilization has already died out or moved on into another plane or into a completely computer generated world, whereas civilizations younger than us are probably still in primordial ages compared to where we are. It would be interesting to find an advanced race, but again, I can see why they're not coming here.
Yeah. Well, many would disagree and say that they are coming here and they're just waiting for us to get our shit together before they come back, which doesn't make any sense to me. I always like, we had a guy in the forum at one point, I don't know if he's still in there, but he was making the claim that he's all about aliens and ghosts and everything, and nothing against that, but he was like, I think that Christians are just stupid. I think it's bizarre that they think that there's some guy up in the sky who made this and this and this, and little did they know that they're... What's going on over there, Curtis?
Yeah, grabbing a cough drop.
Okay. Sounded like you were just chewing very loudly.
He's chewing the cough drop.
But yeah, he said something to the effect of, Christians are crazy because obviously it's not a guy, and this God that they believe in is just an alien, or aliens, and they created us, and they did this and this, and made all our technology, and blah blah blah. It's like, well then, why is God so crazy? Because you're just calling it something else at that point. You're saying that something created us and put all these things into place, and we are just trying to appease that thing. Like, what is the difference exactly, except the title?
I don't mean to tangent right off of something you just said there, Dan, but it's actually made me really curious. I've always thought the idea of God being in the sky was just like a really cutesy way of explaining things to children, and it wasn't really meant to be super serious,
Sure.
like in actual, an actual sermon. Like, is that like a legitimate thing taught, that God is literally in the clouds right above that, or was that just meant to be more of a metaphor? That's what I always thought it was.
Basically more of a metaphor, yeah.
Yeah, so like when I've seen a similar thing where it's like, all these Christians are so dumb, they think God's just in the sky, and I'm like,
Right.
do they really? I don't think they do. Like, I don't think they actually
Omniscient,
think that in a literal
omnipresent
sense.
does not mean that he's this one thing that's right there, and that's like, if you travel out far enough into space, you'll eventually hit heaven and find the one guy
God's
in
house.
Yes, God's house at the North Pole.
Knock on the door.
Yeah, no. I mean, my understanding has been, which I can only speak for myself, that God is everywhere and everything, which, of course, raises the questions about the bad things in the world, but, that's a different conversation altogether.
It's a great point you brought up, Justin, because for the vast majority of my life, I always kind of imagined that, God's presence is everywhere, up in the sky, just like we're down here, he's up there.
He's everywhere,
he's looking
up
down
there.
at us, but he's not like, up there. He fills the whole sky, and that's kind of frustrating to me, though, because it's like it's something that has been so ingrained into me, and it's not because someone did that to me. It's not because someone told me that. It's just because that's how my imagination has always worked, and it kind of frustrates me. I don't like my imagination.
Well, yeah, and I kind of feel the same. Like, all the things that you see depicted of God as best as they can, it's like he's on clouds. So you automatically assume he's not right here. He's up there, wherever that is. So yeah, your imagination, especially as a child, is only so, well, it's probably less limited, but you can't really, even now, we can't understand the omniscience and omnipresence and like being a thing, a part of everything. So
right. Yeah, I that was just something I always thought was like an unfair criticism. I mean, like, come on, like that's like baby's first Christian criticism right there.
Yeah, I tend to hear that a lot. Like, so you believe in some old bearded man in the sky? It's like, no, I didn't say
That sounds
that.
like that version of God. That sounds like a God that sucks. Not very relatable.
Yep. Justin, you got any other topics? I was wanting to get Luke in here to weigh in on the what was it? The morality debate.
The morality issue. That's one hell of a question right there. We should do a research and come back and do that one again. I think. I mean, I definitely. I have stuff I want to say, and
Sure.
As you could have told, my thoughts were not properly organized. So we should definitely revisit that at some point. Bring Luke back. I definitely think Curtis and I have a lot we would agree upon if we could take time to formulate our opinions. I mean, I think we all have similar values, everyone here,
Sure.
which is, I think, a good thing.
Yeah. Nothing against anybody else here, but Justin, if you wanted to just do you and I an actual episode and do a back and forth on morality, I think we could probably make something good out of that too.
Yeah, sure. We'll talk about that. I'm always down for that.
Cool. All right. Well, you got anything else? Luke just texted me and said he'll be on in a couple minutes, so we might jump back to that. But for now, let's move along.
Cool. Hey, Forrest, ask me a question.
Oh, okay. Trying to think, what do atheists like to be asked? No.
They like to be asked.
You're really as hateful as Cosnot Dead says you are.
I would say, if anything I was ever taught is accurate, then atheists just love to be asked, have you ever heard of the good news and my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ?
Oh. I don't know. Where does here's a pretty deep question. Because they always say that
that's a bold statement.
It's
about to get deep, bro.
It's gonna get deep. It's gonna get rated R here now. So the question that I thought of was, so we as Christians always say that God is a source of hope. He's the source of hope for your future and your outcome and everything like that. So as you currently stand right now, just where you are currently, I'm not asking you where you might be in a couple weeks. I'm not asking you where you might be tonight. Where to you is your source of hope as far as your outcome, if there might even be any? And I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just asking, where does that come for you?
Are you meaning like afterlife?
Are you asking life? What are you chiefly asking me what motivates me to get out of bed in the morning?
Sure. And this isn't I'm not trying to convert you or anything. I'm just
No, that's a pretty good question. And honestly, that's a tough one. I'll grant you that assertion you made earlier. That is a good question. So I think if I was being honest, and I do think that a lot of people who are asked this question might give some sort of like really cutesy mystical answer of like, life is beautiful and of course it's great, et cetera, et cetera. No, it's.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that answer personally, but go on.
I'm not satisfied with that answer. I think it's sort of like there was a time that I really thought a lot about what's going to happen when I die, and that really scared me. And I realized that I didn't like going down that route. And when I was younger, I've had 3 of my friends die already. 3 friends died by age 22, and that was a pretty confusing situation for me to figure out. Tried to find God, didn't really work out super well. But then I realized, and I think to answer your question, Forrest, I'm just giving a bunch of data here, is that when I think throughout my life of all the times that I felt really good, like just like viscerally was like in the moment, I was really enjoying what I was doing, be it maybe some sort of goal I accomplished with regards to my career, or I understood some sort of academic subject really well, or I met a new girl and everything's going amazing. Like I'm really happy, or I made a good friendship or travel or whatever. I think about those moments, and I think about the possibility of more of those moments happening in the future. And I think there's something kind of hard coded into me to want to keep making those happen. So I think that's a major factor to do with it. I also think there is something kind of hard coded. There's this sort of, and that's a good question. I keep saying hard coded. What does that really mean? You could say, is it a genetic desire? That I want to have children one day, or I want to procreate or have a family. It seems like a pretty strong impulse of doing something like that. Which everyone who I've spoken with who has kids, they tell me, you just won't understand until you have kids about how it's the greatest thing in the world, even though they might annoy the hell out of you. But it's just a whole different planet. And
it's not the greatest thing in the world. It's all right, but
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
So there just seems to be a lot of like when I decided I would probably drive myself crazy if I worry about the future and ignore the present. And in fact, I just reflect upon the good things that have happened to me. That's a major motivator to keep striving for those various goals. And just, like, my gosh, like when you hug someone that you care about, that, I mean, it sounds mystical, but that really just feels really nice. And I like feeling nice, it's a good thing. And I want it to happen more. So
well, it's funny. I get to point out to you the fact that I, as a Christian, have a flaw. Ooh. So,
is it Rogue One?
It's
yeah,
Rogue One.
No.
Every church is going to mention that.
Yep.
First.
It's mandatory. Got to sneak it in.
It's like how in Lost, it's not an episode of Lost unless that one character says SOB. So no, it's it's the fact that what's that?
Back to your flaw, Forrest.
Yeah, no, that's one game. I mentioned because you mentioned that you're like you want to be a little more present oriented, that you don't want to be too obsessed with how your future looks, that you want to be able to enjoy the present moment while it lasts. That's something that I really struggle with. I'm way too future oriented for my own good. So that's a quality you have that I definitely strive for, man.
How old are you, Forrest? Again, you say you're 22?
I'm 22, but I'm going to be 23 in 3 months. So the mentality of being 23 is already there, which is sad. But yeah.
Well, make sure you listen to that Blink-182 song on your 23rd birthday, okay? Because that's what you have to do. I hope you know what I'm talking about. You better. You're too young.
Oh, yes. I'll look it up.
Oh, too young. Unfortunate. No, Forrest, let's chat offline sometime. I think I see a lot of myself in you, and I think that there's
he's going to turn you to the dark side.
Hey, dude, I'd be absolutely more than happy to.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you on Facebook. But no, I think that it was sort of like I was driving myself crazy.
Yeah.
Especially when I was in college, and that was rough. Like there were just some times that I remembered when I got the news that my friend passed. That was one of the hardest couple of weeks of my life, and I just couldn't think about when everyone else was. And this person wasn't even that close to me, like compared to other people that are close in my life, or like God forbid my mom or my brother, my father. And then it started making me think, what's going to happen if these people die suddenly? What am I going to do, and how do I deal with that? And it was rough, and it was sort of like I had to make a really strong decision and really practice every single day to focus on what do I have control of, what actions can I take at a certain time to have certain outcomes that are pleasurable given my internal value structure and things of that nature. And I haven't gone crazy yet, so.
Oh, I love it, and it's something I've been trying to work on myself after 29, almost 30 years of life. Ugh. But
man.
Yeah, I know. But I think that's actually something that most Christians or religious people just gloss over and don't appreciate enough, or don't live intentionally, don't live in the now enough, because there is this thing that we're thinking about in the future. There is the next stage in our life, supposedly, and there is so much future that we don't focus on enough of what is now. I'm sure that Christians and atheists alike do that. I think that's mostly just a human issue. But
right.
Quick question, Well, you had said some people give the shallow answer of, "Oh, life is just beautiful," and blah blah blah. Do you think that? And I'm not trying to be a douche or anything, but
No, sure.
your answer is kind of that, but broken down to a molecular, more introspective level.
Sure. Let me expand upon what I mean by that a little bit. I was definitely a little vague and condescending. Sure. So I remember one time that I watched this interview that Dave Rubin gave with Richard Dawkins, and I remember that Richard Dawkins is all everyone.
Send me a link to that interview because that sounds fantastic.
I will. It was good, and I like Dave Rubin, and I actually don't even dislike Richard Dawkins that much. Although I've more recently just don't like militant atheism at all. Like I don't find it useful. But one thing that Richard Dawkins said that really stuck with me as just being so, for what a huge rationalist he claims to be, and to reject what he considers to be superstition of like religious people, is the way he talks about how like that the way he explains the miraculous beauty of life as oh, we should just take this as some sort of innate value or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the way that just seems literally just as mystical. I'm not saying it's a bad way to view it, but it's just as mystical.
No, you're right.
But you're missing the because God made it part. Like,
Right.
it's just that. So it doesn't seem any special. It's like you're not actually answering the tough questions about, how do you deal with the suffering of life? How do you deal with interacting with other people? How do you deal with, how do we explain all this happening? Oh, isn't it just wonderful that it just happened to happen this way? And that's the beauty of life.
Sure.
Done. Don't ask any more questions. Like, I wasn't satisfied with that.
No, that's great.
That's sort of like what I meant is like, I'm not ready to just say that. I do think it's interesting and it is fascinating. I mean, when I would lay out at nighttime and I look up at the stars on a really clear night, because I grew up in the countryside, so like this is my first time really living in a city properly and not seeing stars.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at the stars is just that can send you on a sort of spiritual experience itself, kind of, if you could describe it that way. And it's kind of amazing that for however we want to explain how it happened, here I am, sentient, if we want to call myself that, conscious, if we want to use that word, being, parsing all this information, and it's so much that I can't even begin to comprehend it in any useful way, and it does feel really mystical. So I don't know. I don't know if I answered your question, but I want to be very clear about how I'm not ready to use the mysticism of Christianity or religious people and not pretend like I'm something special for it.
Sure. No, that's great. And I've actually heard somebody else make that argument recently. It might have been Pete Holmes, because he's all about that stuff. But
that's awesome.
Yes, he is. Yeah, no, that's great. And I lost my train of thought again. So Curtis, weigh in. You've been silent, and I love the sound of your beautiful, soothing voice.
I think for the most part, I'd have to agree. And one of the big things that gives me hope, of course, being new to this whole father game for a year, is seeing my son and just him giving me the hope to do better and to make his life better, and my stepkids make their lives better and make my girlfriend's lives better. I think they're the ones that give me hope, and hope that they can become more than what I am.
Right. Living for something other than you, for once.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I know being single, because I was single for a very long time, it was an unhappy time.
Sure.
And there are times being single that, you can have fun, but finding that meaning in someone else and then creating that into a new life is brought a lot of hope into my world.
Very cool.
Dan, you strike me as the type of guy where when you get a new kid is born and you're holding that kid.
Yeah,
he's already 8 when he comes out. No, so you're holding the new kid you're holding your kid for the very first time, and you're looking down at him. You strike me as the type of dad where, like, when you're doing that, you're looking down at him with the most stoic expression, the most emotionless expression there ever was.
Oh, that's sad. It's not true. It's not true. I would say it probably goes for most people, especially people of my personality type. It takes a big shakeup in your life for you to actually not react, for you to react to something emotionally. Like, I don't react to anything emotionally. So it takes like a complete 180. Like, I haven't even had like real deaths in the family. Kayla's grandpa was like the main one, and just other family crises and stuff like that. It takes something big for me to react to something, but I did react to my children for what it's worth. And also, screw you, Forrest.
Sorry. He didn't say F you, so he wasn't that mad.
Well, these episodes are, they're going live to the general public now, so I might clean up my language a little bit. But
I like that you chose that idea, Dan. That's pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll see.
You heard
everyone will be watching me job hunt and text.
You folks heard it here first. When I hit it big, this will be my starting point. System is Down Podcast Church.
There you go. Yeah, it is available on YouTube only at the moment. And if people, I don't know, I just wanted to put it out there because I think not only are the conversations really valuable, I think I want it to be more accessible to people, and maybe it'll, show some people that people can have these conversations about weird things and with completely different opinions, and it might make people rethink some things. I think that's healthy and more people need that, but I also did it because, what other podcast can you be on a weekly basis? So if we're not getting it out there, then less people will come. So
I didn't even listen to the last episode.
Screw you, Forrest.
Wow. Kick him, Dan.
Do you want me to kick you out of the show for a second time?
At least this time would be a little more legitimate.
All right.
I don't know, your Rogue One talk.
Have you even seen Rogue One?
A few times, actually.
All right, excellent.
Yep.
Forrest, that's literally the comment that a critic of Rogue One would say. Have you even seen Rogue One? 'Cause I saw it, but I don't even remember, so it's not even as if I saw it.
Justin, have you even read your Bible? I don't read it, but I think it would help you.
I actually do have a copy of the Bible on my bookshelf. That's right.
I don't.
Wow, worst Christian ever.
At least not the bookshelf in this room, but that's besides the point. All right, Curtis. Curtis, any final topics?
Going for it.
Oh, Justin's grabbing his Bible. Justin's getting resources. All right, Justin.
So
flip it open and find a topic.
All right. Well, first, actually, this is a good question. The King James Version. So, is this the right Bible? Yes or no?
Karen?
Isn't that like a controversial thing right there?
I do like...
I have friends who think it's the only right version.
I have several, yes. I would say that if there is a right version, it's one that I want to be able to read. So as Forrest's dad and my pastor always says, I think that the right version is the one that you'll actually read. I do think that I'm not a hardcore biblical inerrantist. Like I think that God's bigger than the Bible, and I think that God spoke to us through the Bible, and we may have gotten some things wrong, and I'm okay with that. But for that reason, every single version that we have and every one that we can read is a translation. So if there's a translation that somebody else disagrees with, guess what? It's just a translation, just like God did not write the King James Version Bible. That's all.
Right. And this one has Jesus's words in red, which I like.
Skip to the good parts.
Anything interesting in here? All right, I'm going to choose a random thing. All right, I'm in Psalm 131. Lord, my heart is not haughty, nor my eyes lofty. Neither do I exercise myself in great matters or in things too high for me. I mean, that's nice. Oh, these are all nice.
Yeah.
I like this.
If you're looking in Psalm, you're not going to find too much controversy. It's mostly praise.
Yeah.
Get to the good, gruesome parts.
All right,
Get
Leviticus.
The Song of Songs.
Guys, I got nothing. I'm just literally flumming through this thing. I got nothing.
We're counting on you, Justin.
No,
like, help me interpret the verse that says we worship you, Lord. And I said, I think it means we worship the Lord. And it goes on like that for 20 minutes.
Who's this Jesus character that keeps popping up?
Some Mexican dude.
Amazing.
He's Middle Eastern.
So I'm curious, for y'all Christian peeps, again, what are your thoughts on, like, sacred names? Like, I mean, Jesus wasn't named Jesus, and they didn't refer to God as God back in the day. It was, to our best understanding, it was something to the effect of Yahweh and Yeshua. Do you guys think that, I mean, I know a lot of, like, biblical conspiracy people that are really into that stuff, and they think that, well, I don't know them personally, but I follow them, and they think that, you know, we're calling God God, but it also says in the Bible, do not worship these gods. Like, it's a title, not a name, and it's not personal like it should be, and we're kind of depleting his personality by calling him just God. It's like saying, hello, plumber, welcome to my house, or whatever. Like calling somebody by their title rather than their name. Any thoughts? I know that's a big can of worms when we're about to wrap up, but go ahead.
Funny that you mentioned that, because if I just simply calling him God, you're depleting what he really is. Maybe I need to stop calling my dad Dad. I'll call him Lee instead. Or better yet, by his first name Forrest.
That's fair. But the term God isn't really like a term of endearment. It's just a term of respect, like a thing. And when you say, do not watch TV too much because that will be your God, like, if it's that little bit of respect that it's just something that you care about a lot, then I don't know if it's necessarily equated. But Karen, thoughts?
I don't know about the depleting his power. I do think, it's valuable when you're studying to study the names of God and what they mean, because it's crazy, how much is there. I personally haven't ever noticed, like, having less respect or whatever, less affection, less anything for God by calling him God. Right. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I would imagine that if God is God, or Yahweh is Yahweh in this discussion, then he understands what you mean in your heart. But there are some people that think that even if you don't intend it, it's disrespectful, or it's not, like, fully grasping who he is and feeling as close to him as you should be, because you're talking about him as something else. And even the name Jesus isn't translated directly. Like, Yeshua should be, if it's translated into English, should probably be Joshua. But, and then there's conspiracy people that think that we're praising Zeus by calling him Jesus because, hey, Zeus. But
and then there's the interesting, my husband Gary is a Messianic Jew, and a lot of Jewish people spell God without the O, because it's like heresy to spell God's name. So you have like G-D,
sure.
Because you shouldn't write his name down because it's so holy.
Interesting.
That explains what?
I was wondering about that. That explains his Facebook posts.
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I've noticed that, and I think that that's interesting too, because, I mean, I have no idea, but
Me neither.
like, from the Jewish text and stuff, if you're into, like, the more sacred Hebrew scripture and stuff like that, it's confusing to me why they call him God at all, and think that would be something that would be, that you would have to edit that, rather than maybe editing his name, but we're getting really in the weeds here, and I think we need more people to dig that deep. But
yeah,
what, 5 people aren't enough?
Karen, go wake Gary up and have him weigh in.
Yeah, I don't think he could wake up right now if he tried.
Sure.
I didn't know that was the whole thing. I'll be honest, I really wasn't, like, I don't exactly understand what you guys are talking about.
Sure. Would you like me to clarify anything?
Yeah. I mean, like, with regards to names, like, what's the controversy?
There isn't any in my mind. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And if there's a God, I don't think he's concerned about what we're calling him as long as we're talking to him. Like if somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey Don, how's it going?" I'm not going to be hugely offended by it. You're just talking to me. But so there are some people, well, the Hebrew text, to our best understanding, God, his name was Yahweh, and they referred to him as Yahweh or something to that effect. And Jesus, his name was Yeshua or something close to that. And everything has been passed down, and it eventually became Jesus and God. And God is a title more than an actual name. So some people think that that is disrespectful or whatever. I mean, there's a whole lot of trails that you can go with that.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Justin, what's your occupation?
I'm a software engineer.
You're a what?
I'm a computer programmer.
Would you be offended if I referred to you as computer programmer? What's up, computer programmer?
I mean, not really. I'd be like, yeah, I would fall into that category.
Yeah, I kind of feel like if there's a God that he's not concerned about that petty stuff or our misunderstandings of his name, but I think it's interesting, and apparently I'm the only one that does, but
When you said Yahweh, I started thinking of Indiana Jones.
What's that?
When you said Yahweh, I started thinking of Indiana Jones.
I haven't watched Indiana Jones in so long. I don't remember the reference.
Did you even
Was
look
it
in
the
the,
Ark of the Covenant?
What's that?
Or, no. Which one? No, it was when he finds the Holy Grail.
Sure.
He has to spell out Yahweh on a bridge.
Okay. That'd be Temple of Doom, wouldn't it? I might be wrong.
Oh, not even close.
Last Crusade. I don't know.
It definitely wasn't Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
All right. Well, we've gone for an hour-ish, and we've exhausted all of our topics that we had, and we have nowhere left to go. Unless somebody has any final thoughts, we will wrap her up.
I have something. Did you even notice the comment I left in the message board or whatever you call it?
No. I don't know.
Forum?
You've left a lot of comments.
On Skype. The message board on Skype.
No.
No.
I'm currently talking to you face to face. I didn't know I had to.
Well, at the very beginning.
What was it?
Fall Out Boy allegedly sucks.
It says Fall Out Boy sucks, but as SUX.
Amazing.
I do actually.
And Forrest is gone.
Wow. Oh, amazing. That's two instances.
Yeah.
Wait. Are we missing someone else?
No, Curtis is still here. And Karen's still here. Well, hi, Forrest.
Oh, of course.
Fantastic.
I feel like every episode now has to end with Forrest saying something stupid and me kicking him out of the group.
That's the reason why I haven't listened to the last episode yet, because I didn't want to hear that part.
Oh.
Just said I listened to Fall Out Boy a lot after my first breakup. I don't know why. It just, for some reason, I had this Fall Out Boy addiction or something. I guess better than drugs, right?
What's funny is that some of the people listening to this will have no idea how this is relevant to the conversation in any way whatsoever because they don't follow the forum, and you're just like derailing whatever we were talking about in order to talk about some emo band from back in the early 2000s.
Dan,
Dan. You know that the only people who listen to the bonus content are the ones who contributed to the forum.
It's no longer bonus content. It's available to the public.
I was going to say, Dan, you could have perfectly segued into promoting the System is Down forum, but no, you just had to attack Forrest instead.
The people who do not follow the System is Down forum, which you can find by going to tsidpod.com/forum and asking to join today, or you can just go on to facebook.com and type in the System is Down forum and ask to join, because it is a closed group. But if you look like a human, I'll let you in right away. Those people might know what you're talking about. But the rest of you have no idea.
Beautifully done.
All right, Justin, you want to pray us out?
Rub-a-dub-dub. Thanks for the podcast. See you guys next week.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was a small group today, but I enjoyed it. And we might be here next week. I'm not sure. What is next week?
No, Luke Crane's
The 29th. We can probably make next week happen. So if you're in for next week, raise your hand. All right. Everybody raise their hand, we'll say. Yeah, thanks, guys. And I'll talk to you guys later.
Peace.
Down in the forest, we'll sing a chorus, one that everybody knows. Hands held higher, we'll be on fire, singing songs that nobody wrote. Hands held higher, we'll be on fire. Hands held higher, we'll be on fire.
This has been a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.